so we're doing our member spotlight. So we're here with Mrs. Erin Boyce, a longtime member of Synergy Strength. And we were just chatting before I got on here that I have no plans for today's talk. And the reason being is because in the past, every time I talk to Erin, I have this, I have one question for her, and then it like just down the rabbit hole for like an hour and a half of wasting all of her time and taking up all of her life on having to listen to me. And we get into this big talk around mindset, nutrition, sleeping, supplements, whatever, right? But so we're just going to see where this goes. So I don't know how far we're going to get, but I think this will be fun. So let's start here though. Let's start with Erin. Who are you? Give us like, who are you? What do you do there, sister?
Who am I? Okay, well, I'm a member at Synergy, but I also am a wife and mother. I would start there. So I have two kids. They're 9 and 6, a boy and a girl, and I'm a wife of a police officer in Saskatoon. I'm a nurse practitioner. I've been a nurse practitioner for about 7 years already, in and around Saskatoon. So I do house calls for patients that really can't get out to see their family doctor. I work with home care with that. Previous life, I ran clinic in a small town outside of Saskatoon and in a couple small towns, actually. I was an emergency room nurse, surgery nurse, all the nursey things. I love it all the health. I teach for the University of Saskatchewan. I teach at the College of Nursing, pathophysiology and pharmacology to nurse practitioners. So I have a lot of fun with that. Currently, I'm involved with a little bit of the course development there around how we're transitioning everything to online, right? This year, everything had to go online. So we've been working on that stuff a lot. And I think we've developed a really cool program around that. So that's basically me. In my spare time, I love CrossFit. I'm a member of the sport program. So Justin programs extra work for me every week, and I definitely always focus on getting it done, and I think it's made a big difference in my overall health. Absolutely. And the more that I work and the longer I work in healthcare, and the older I get, like I'm 38 now, the more I realize how important kind of the upstream approach to health is. And the upstream approach meaning let's take care of ourselves before we get sick, right? So I feel really fortunate to be able to do what I do, like go to the gym and hammer off pull-ups or handstands or whatever. But that's again, because I want to be able to, get up from a fall in 20, 25 years, 30 years, all those kind of things. Like I think everything that we do in CrossFit is so important for functional life. Like I before I came to Synergy, so that was about four years ago, I think, I was like, functional fitness, what is that, right? I was a bit of a gym rat at the regular kind of a gym. But now that I'm here and realizing like the stuff we do every day, our movements we do every day, right? Like deadlifts, picking something up off the floor, that's huge. Any kind of barbell lift, well, picking up my kids every day, again, that's huge, right? And things under stress and under pressure and working hard and revving up your heart rate and all the good stuff. And especially, now that we're living in such a stressful time with COVID, the benefits of exercise on our mental health as well is huge, right? So it's just, I love Synergy. I love CrossFit and I love healthcare. So I'm just happy to be where I'm at. I feel really fortunate to be where I'm at in life, I guess, in general. And now my son has been starting to go to De Bears, which is really, really cool. He's really enjoying that. And I'm going to get my daughter involved in that once dancing wraps up here in May. So yeah, I just love it. I just took Precision Nutrition Level 1. I'm taking the Coach Mark method right now. I'm starting a little bit of nutrition coaching as well. Again, that came about because I took nutrition coaching and I had elevated liver enzymes after I had my Gracie, my daughter. So that's about 6 years ago. And I went to the doctor and I had no idea. I went to the doctor and he's like, well, how much alcohol do you drink, Erin? And I was like, well, like basically none, like maybe a drink every couple months, right? And he's like, well, then you have fatty liver disease. And I was like, what? And I was 31, 32 years old at the time, and I couldn't believe that. And it had been from weight gain over the course of my pregnancies and things like that. And I started at Synergy, and then hired Mark as my nutrition coach because I knew I needed to do more. And it was really amazing focusing on my eating and my overall health, but really focusing on my eating. I like all my lab work became normal within 6 months, you know, and it still is. And that's just phenomenal. So that's how I've kind of come about the interest in nutrition and nutrition coaching. Like, you know, food is medicine. And if we can help you move better and eat better, and you never have to be perfect, but if we can help you move better and eat better, we can do a lot for your life. And I feel like I'm living proof of that. And I try to instill that in my kids, keep them active, and my husband. I try and cook for him and stuff like that too. And, you know, like I think there's just so much potential here for what we can do before we get sick, you know? So it's a little my soapbox, I guess. That's me, I would say, in a nutshell.
That was a lot. Yeah. I think you might have got it all. That's good. Well done. Okay, I did have a couple questions while you're going through that. Probably most people aren't aware, but what is a nurse practitioner?
Oh, sure. So I am a registered nurse, but I also went back to school after becoming a nurse, and I have a master's degree and a specialty in being a nurse practitioner. So basically what I can do is I can diagnose disease and prescribe a lot like a family physician. We're not at the same level of a family physician. I'd say we're about, you know, like 75% between a nurse and a family physician. So really try to work collegially with our RNs and our doctors, and it's been a fantastic role for me. I really like it. Learning every day, learning new things every day. My practice focuses a lot on COPD and also so chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, so lung disease, and also heart disease and congestive heart failure and things like that. So yeah, I have a lot of fun with that. And then my background before that, I also have an undergraduate degree in human physiology. So I really like school, people would tell you.
Clearly. Now, I think you already mentioned it as well, but like, who are the people that you work with on a daily basis?
On a daily basis right now, usually older adults, but they can sometimes be a lot younger just with advanced stage chronic illness. So with the chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or really bad asthma or heart failure, or palliative, you know, people are passing away, will help, you know, pain control and symptom management and things like that.
So that's interesting. I don't know why, but more just a personal question. I was thinking, you know, it's amazing, like helping people. Like I always think of myself as a coach. It's like my job is service. I serve people with health, fitness, wellness, all that kind of stuff. Now you're on a different spectrum of that, but you're dealing with sickness and disease all the time, right? How do you like maybe like strategy or something like that? But like what like how taxing is that on you as an individual? And I have family members who are paramedics. They see some of the worst things in the world, man. It's a terrible. Well, from my perspective, sorry, I mean, you're doing kind of God's work to some degree, but at the same time, it's like it wouldn't be a job for me. But like how stressful is that? And I mean, I guess your whole family, your husband's a police officer. I mean, how do you guys deal with all the mental aspects of it?
I think we don't know that it's not normal because it's just we're so used to dealing with high stress situations in both of our jobs, and that's probably why you see a lot of nurses and cops that end up married. It's actually pretty interesting, or paramedics and nurses, or paramedics. Like I think we're all kind of just that personality, we're attracted to that. And so I think
you guys are on the same level of vibration all the time, right? Because
we understand each other a lot there, but things do take their toll for sure. Like I'll have to debrief over certain things, and you learn how to cope, and some people cope well and some people don't, right? So I think by nature have a bit of an addictive personality. Like I think that's why I love school, but I think I've also channeled that into like fitness as well and health. And it's kind of where I see how things could get bad. And I mean, sometimes you get sick and there's nothing you can do about it. Absolutely. Right. But sometimes you can do something about it. So I don't know. We deal with it. We both exercise a lot.
That might kind of link those stuff all together. Is that like the mental, like we talked about this the other day, but like the mental aspects, the physical aspects are intimately connected, and you kind of briefly touched on your first talk. Maybe if I step away for a second, like the other question I'd have is like, I mean, this is a very broad question, but like status of health in the world, or if we think about our community right now, our community, let's focus on
Yeah.
our community because that's where we are. We live in the same community. So Saskatchewan,
Mhm.
Saskatoon, however you want to look at it. How would you rate the status of our health?
I don't know. Like it depends on, I guess I don't want to, I think depends on the population you're working with. I think there's room for improvement, I would say. I think there's a lot of things in general in like our North American society that are problematic, right? Like we've become more sitting on the couch. And I mean, if you think about things like a toxic food environment, right? Like it's so easy to go find a vending machine with a bag of chips or 7-Eleven or whatever. I mean, 7-Eleven they do have some healthy options now. Like I've been known to run in and buy a banana or an apple from there on my way to work. But it's a lot easier to get a hold of something that's not good for you before something that is. I remember when I don't know what project I was working on, but we were talking about like downtown in the core of Saskatoon, and there wasn't a grocery store within blocks for a lot of people. And these people a lot of people living around there don't have cars, right? Like, how are you going to go to the store and buy an apple? You can't, right? But you can go buy chicken nuggets because it's a block away. Like, of course, that's what you're going to pick. And I think there's a problem too with food accessibility financially, right? Like groceries are really expensive. If you're talking about feeding a family and you don't have a stable income, like it's sometimes cheaper to go get fast food. I don't know. So like as society, I think it's really hard to make healthy choices. Like I don't necessarily think as a society we facilitate that for people enough in general, like in the broad spectrum.
Well, I
Right.
think that's kind of where I was going. Is I think at some level that we
Yeah.
is like you said, like we don't facilitate healthy choices, right? And
Yeah.
then you could talk about that from a standpoint of accessibility,
Mm-hmm.
financial means, all that kind of stuff. Where our subsidies are going, all those kinds of things. But really, at the end of the day, like from a cultural perspective,
Yeah.
health is not a priority by any means, and
No.
that's what I meant by the what is the status of health today. I just personally, maybe I'm way more pessimistic. Maybe certain members of my family would say that I'm trying to be positive on certain fronts, but with regard to the health and our culture, I really feel like one, like we have the opportunity to make a change, but just generally speaking, the media, politics, however you want to look at it, just really don't take a priority towards health. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I promise, I said this earlier before we started recording, I did not want to get political or get into any of these other topics, but
That's fine.
but I'll get into them anyways. Is a good example. We chatted this one day, and again, I don't want to get too deep into this, but on that note, it's like, it's to some degree, and you tell me where I'm wrong, it's the same as COVID right now, right? We hear all the I think I read a stat the other day that 96% of the media that comes out on COVID is negative, which of course there's a lot of negative things, but there's still some positive aspects to, how we've dealt with things, how people are managing, that what we can do for a mental perspective to staying healthy. But the one thing that you've never, ever heard, and I don't, well, at least I haven't, and I don't see enough talk on, is one of the best things you can do to not necessarily avoid, but to manage COVID, or to if you do catch it, that you're going to be healthy and safe, is diet, exercise, being healthy, having a health conscious mindset. And we don't talk about this. We don't hear about it. Is it fair to say that you would agree with that statement, or is that some of you?
Yeah, I think you can say that not just about COVID, but about anything. Like if you look at I'm going to jump back into chronic illness with that a little bit, but if you look at a chronic disease perspective, right, a chronic illness trajectory, it follows basically a steady decline, right? Okay. And then every time you hit the hospital or have an exacerbation or get sick, I mean, you have a real sharp decline, and then you come back up and you're not at that same level you quite were, right? And then you go along, and then you get sick again, and then you're until eventually you're really, really sick or pass away, right? So I think you can think of that not just with COVID, but I mean with the flu, like with anything that you can catch. If you're already at a higher level of health to start with, it's probably not going to hit you as hard. And that's not going to be necessarily for everybody. Like I'm not saying this is a blanket thing for everybody, but if you want to have tools in your tool belt to fight this thing, you got to be healthy to start with. And that's I totally agree with that. And how do we get there? By making the good health choices most of the time, right? The best we can most of the time. So like if I'm starting from like here, then catching something and I get sick, but like I have a chance of getting back to like my baseline, which is really, really good. Whereas if my baseline isn't great to start with, your chances are not great. Like it's a scary thing. And I know it's not direct like that for everybody, but I think that could be a lot of what we're seeing.
Well, generally speaking, I think there's a lot of truth to that. But I think one of the things that I'm saying, getting at too, is that if you talk about like, here's the kind of the level at which you're at, then you get sick, you drop down here, which I think is a really cool analogy. One of the probably, I don't know how to put this, but the problem is like societally, we're all down here when we probably should be here. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So I mean, it's like the status of health. It's like the problem is, it's what we, I remember I used to work with Scotty Butcher a lot. We would do talks on strength training for elderly populations and things like this, and we called it strength reserve. And one of our key components that we always talk to people about is that never lose anaerobic potential and never lose strength. These are the two of the biggest components physically that you want to maintain throughout your life and as you age, because as you lose those two, you lose longevity, but more importantly, you lose independence. And that's actually probably the exact same thing. You could look at that as maybe like a health reserve, right? So if this is like where we need to be as a society, as just for like a baseline, we should be striving to be up here as individuals because it gives us this hedge or this, this like a certain level of safety that comes with it. And of course, there's always outliers. I understand that, but I love your analogy. That's fantastic. And just simply is like we should be trying to bring up that level as a culture, as a community, which we do at the gym, of course. But and I think anyone involved in CrossFit, it doesn't matter what club you're talking about, Synergy, all the different clubs in Saskatoon or out of the world. That's truly what we're doing. And I'll go off on a short tangent. I think to some degree, we also have to maybe come back to that, where at some level, CrossFit as a sport has gone more into like sport aspects, right? And pushed that way. But when you got into the origins of it, when I started CrossFit 15 years ago, it was really based around health. And if you go back and read a lot of the original documents that Greg Glassman and different people put out, which, tough name to bring up these days, but either way, CrossFit itself was very, very much about changing the health of society. That was one of its original missions, and I think we have to get back to that, where we start again. I love this idea of creating a health reserve, right?
For sure. Yeah, we talk about, like, I like that reserve. Like, we talk about reserve capacity all the time in health, right? Like, you'll watch somebody.
I thought maybe I came up with that. I didn't realize.
No, sorry, bud. But But it's a great analogy, because when you watch somebody, say, in the hospital and they're not doing well, and we'll talk about, if something else happens to them, they have no reserve, right? They have no reserve left to fight something. And I mean, that is somebody on a continuum of the spectrum of wellness and health and illness, right? So totally, like, building that reserve, building that capacity, building that potential so we can deal with things. Absolutely. The stronger you are, and the healthier you are, the better you're going to be able to fight something, for the most part. It's going to give you a better chance,
Yeah, 100%. No, I think that's really interesting. So then if, now I didn't prep you for this or give you any heads up on this, but if you were to say, like, you're doing nutrition, you're in the healthcare industry, of course, but then what would be the primary, I don't know, like list of 10, list of 3, whatever it is, what are the things that we can all do as a culture, as a society, to improve our health, like the biggest bang for the buck things that we can do? I'm putting on the spot here. I'm sorry, but
there's gonna be so many people adding things. Like, this is not. I am thinking of things. I think eat less and move more. A lot of us, and eat fresh fruits and vegetables. That's where I would start with. Absolutely.
So eat less. I mean, again, it's one of those things, like a societal, like if this is our baseline, our basal metabolic rate, what we have to like kind of maintain, we're probably all up here as
totally. And if you think about it, like, weight gain doesn't happen overnight, and neither does weight loss if you want it to be sustainable, right? And if you're like, packing on a pound every couple months, at the end of the year, that's 12, that's 6 pounds. But I mean, you know what I mean? But like, honestly, at the end of 2 years, then that's 12 pounds or a pound a month. Like, if that's what you're putting on in weight, I mean, eventually that's going to catch up with you. And I mean, I did that in my 20s as well, right? You're just like, oh, I did get chubbier. You know what I mean? And it builds over time, and you don't see it. And again, it's because I was eating a little too much and not moving quite enough, say, right? And maybe not always making the best choices. And that's part of my, with the nutrition too. I'm just like, we got to find that number that of calories that you need per day just to maintain your weight. And then if you're looking to lose weight, we'll just put you a little bit underneath it. One, so it's maintainable, and two, so it works, right? If I don't put you in a deficit, you're not going to lose weight.
Well, I think that's key. Is I was just reading an article yesterday on this, and the fact that it's like the best key to weight loss long term is, well, it's not even the key. It is what you have to do is you have to maintain a caloric deficit for a long time. Right. I mean,
yeah.
I cannot get around this. Now, I'll admit, when I first started, and there may be even some people that watch this.
I know it's painful.
Yeah, well, it doesn't have to be though. That's the thing. I think we end up doing this like yo-yo thing where it's like it's like a crash diet, move up. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need to name the names, but like there's different programs out there where it's like, you know, you're dropping down to 900,000 calories. That's not sustainable. You know, it's not something. You'll lose some weight right away, but you can't maintain it. And weight loss. Like we had a conversation yesterday. I had a meeting, and I was saying, imagine if you lost 1 pound a week. Now, if you were severely overweight right now, you're you know, clinically obese, let's say, you know, which on a BMI chart. If I could say 1 year from now, if you could look back and be 52 pounds down, would you be satisfied? I can't imagine anyone saying no, right? I mean, assuming you have that kind of weight to lose. But what you have to be is just consistent for 1 year. You'll have ups and downs as you're going across that, but 1 pound a week. The problem is we all want to have 10 pounds by, you know, the wedding that's coming up in 3 weeks and things like that. We don't long term. We've gotten so short term in our thinking that everything's just like, I want it now, I want this. But then it creates this vicious cycle of poor choices, which set us up for long-term failure, right? And we just don't think in a more systematic long-term approach, which is really too bad, right? Maybe social media did that or something, I don't know, but interesting.
I totally agree. Like, I know we're talking about summer bodies and stuff right now, and I already think when someone mentions that, I'm like, we're way too late for that. Like,
could have started last summer.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm like, summer 2022. If you want to start working with me now, because I'm not here for a crash diet, right? We're here to change habits.
Yeah. Well, okay, good. That's what we were chatting about the other day when we talked about having this meeting. I was saying, like, in my opinion, one of the biggest problems with all dietary approaches, and I think it's slowly changing to some degree within certain worlds, but is that the very first thing we do not talk about is the philosophy and the ideas and the mindset around weight loss, right? And what it actually maintains. So we're always doing it. We do this too, but you know, the very first thing that we should always start with is like, we're doing a 3-month program. But that 3-month program has to then be repeated 4 or 5 times over in forever individual, and then become a habit, which is then a lifestyle. And there's such cliche like words that we're using and saying, but they're so true, right? Nutrition has to be a lifestyle. Nutrition has to be something that you're going to change and you're going to understand. That doesn't mean you have to count macros for the rest of your life. It doesn't mean any of those things. It just means that you have to change this has to change the way you view food and the way you view yourself in the world and how you move through the world nutritionally, if that makes sense, right?
And physically too. Like, don't limit yourself. Like, try things. Like, I don't know, I always think in like, not to go back to CrossFit, but to go back to CrossFit, like, every skill is scalable, right? And there's never any shame in scaling. And it's, I couldn't do a pull-up the first time I walked in the gym. I couldn't do it for the first year I walked in a gym, you know, like, you just got to keep building on and what you can do and letting your mind think that you can do it. If you think you can do it, you can do it. As soon as you say to yourself, you can't do something, or this is too hard, then it is too hard.
Well, that's my favorite quote of all time, right? What the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve, right? But again, it has to be put in context of what that means in the big picture, right? That's very cool. Well done. Well done. That's good. I was just bringing up here because I was reading it yesterday, but I thought it was kind of interesting as when you're talking about like eat less, move more, right? So this idea of just move, you know, quality nutrition. And I brought up, I don't know if you're familiar with Michael Pollan, or Pollan, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but he was the writer of Omnivore's Dilemma, and I can't remember the other book. This is an older book. It was a very popular book at the time, and popular in my library about 15 years ago. And he has 7 rules of nutrition. And the first one is don't eat anything your grandmother wouldn't recognize as food. And I always thought that was a good one. The second one is don't eat anything that has more than 5 ingredients or ingredients you can't pronounce. Step 3, stay out of the middle of the supermarket, which is a classic one. Shop the perimeter, right? There's really nothing in the center that we need. 4, don't eat anything that wouldn't eventually rot. So the class examples like the Twinkie or something like that, right? It's
the
like
McDonald's French fry that looks
you can find your floor 3 months later, still eat it. Yeah.
Oh, 5 years later when you go sell your car and vacuum it out and you're like, this is probably 5 years ago. Right? Like, that's not good.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And it's not always rule 5. It's not just what you eat, but how you eat. Always leave the table a little hungry, which goes right back. That's why I was thinking about that idea of like eat less, right? We always, and that's one of the things we teach our kids all the time too, is like finish your plate, do all this. Now there's of course a reason for doing that. There's other things that at play, but at the same time, like we're teaching, a potentially a bad eating habit when it's like eat till you're almost full, not till you're full, right? And you'd be much better off. Like being a little hungry, that's cool, nothing wrong with that, right? And then rule 6 was families traditionally ate together, ate around the table, TV, regular meal times. It's a good tradition. Enjoy meals with people that you love. So part of like culture, if you will, around food. And I think that's also part of that's maybe not a nutrition thing. That's just a slow down and enjoy the life, smell the roses a little bit, maybe. And then
well, it is. But sorry.
Go ahead.
No. What was the other one? Go ahead.
Oh, the last one is don't buy food where you buy gasoline, which is funny because, but you're right. It is changing. I think it's
7-Eleven.
Yeah, like even McDonald's, though, you can buy a salad now, right? Now we could get into like, well, what kind of salad dressing do they have? Because in my fridge, I only use like, avocado or olive oil dressings, things like that, right? Of course, they're not going to have that. It's going to be a high, sunflower, whatever else. But if you're comparing that to the Big Mac, we're making headway, right? So slowly but surely, but again, the culture has to change enough in society that we all kind of want to move towards that, where the big companies are listening and they go, yeah, we got to move in that direction, right? Because that's where the money's at, right? And that would be ideal. And then that's where we can start to make the influences over time. So I don't know how we do that. I think, actually, I shouldn't say I don't know how we do that. We do that with people like yourself offering nutritional services, talking about these things, and facilities like that are promoting health, right? We should get back to the idea. Maybe we should move our club not to Synergy Strength and Conditioning, but Synergy Health Club. Maybe that'd be better.
That would be great. And maybe we should sell apples and bananas by the protein bars. Just saying.
Yeah.
We should do an experiment. We literally should bring in a bag of apples next week and see how long it lasts. I can tell you after class, I would grab one.
Yeah.
I wonder.
My problem with the point, that's from a business perspective, is I hate perishable food. And
I know.
That's a good one, right? But from a nutritional perspective, you win for sure.
But the markup on them is insane, because when I go buy an apple or banana at 7-Eleven, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. I'll have to think about that. Yeah. So then going back to our influences, like the biggest influences of health, I was trying to write them down as you were saying, but eat less, move more, and then I lost where you were going to. So. Those are kind of big ones, but was there anything else you wanted to add to that from a standpoint of like
I would say, don't ignore symptoms. That's another big thing I would tell people from this standpoint of health and as a healthcare provider. Like, don't ignore things. Go to your doctor and get it checked out. Like that's another big thing. Like a lot of the time, by the time someone ends up at the doctor, maybe if they would have been there a couple of years before, even 6 months before, maybe more could have been done. But things like diabetes and hypertension, they exist silently, right? And you might be getting some kind of symptoms, like you might notice you're thirstier or you're more fatigued, but by the time you get to the doctor, your blood sugar might have been high for a really, really long time. And the reason we want to control that is to prevent organ damage, right? Like high blood sugar.
So like you said, though, those are silent or things that you wouldn't really know. So is that then like regular checkups, or what would you recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that's been really hard with COVID, but I think that's a big movement too, is what, like the Family Physicians Association, they say everybody needs a family doctor. And I totally agree with that. Like a regular contact with your doctor and getting the best advice from them and doing the screening tests that they advise is the way to go. And that's another way to maintain our health, right? Because sometimes you can catch things before they get too bad. So if your blood sugars stay a little bit high and you're not like diagnosed with diabetes yet, but maybe we're starting some metabolic syndrome, we call it, right? That's some insulin resistance. So your blood sugar is staying high, but we're not at the point of diabetes. Then you can start working on your health after, you know what I mean? Hopefully you are before, but at least then that kind of gives you, I do need to get fit and lose weight here, right?
Maybe two things that come up, and I can't remember these off the top of my head. So you brought up metabolic syndrome. There's 4 symptoms of metabolic syndrome, if I remember right from some of the readings I've done in the past. But one is like elevated blood sugars. One is weight around the midsection. So like
belly fat.
Hypertension was the other one. I actually can't remember. Do you remember the kind of the baseline ones that you'd be looking for to classify metabolic syndrome?
I should off the top of my head, but I don't. But
Okay.
I would say
hypertension, like
insulin resistance and belly fat are two big ones.
Well,
The thing about belly fat is it's not a silent passenger on our bodies, right? Like it's an organ that secretes things that we don't really want.
well, but on that front, then what I was getting to, and sorry to cut you off, would be more so, like you said, a lot of those are silent. So if you're going and you're not aware, so if someone was listening to this and you said, well, okay, but like, what are the key symptoms in your body or things like if you're going to go for your regular checkup, but let's be honest, if you got excessive weight around the midsection, you should probably deal with this, right? That's not a silent one. It's a visual one. You have it. Maybe it's silent, but you can see it. So what are basic things that people could take away from that? Does that make sense? The question I'm asking, like, basically like belly fat, like what kind of things would you think of that would be right off the top of like, you need to start taking care of your health? And we all should, I understand that, but like, what are the key physical indicators of like, get moving, buddy?
Well, I think just by being alive, I think that's a key physical indicator. I think that's hard to pinpoint what a key physical indicator would be, but I would just again say, see your doctor on a regular basis, see your doctor once a year, get your blood pressure checked once a year, at least, by your doctor. Ask your doctor if you should be going for blood work, and they will tell you if you should or not, or what other screening tests are needed for things like cancer. And if you're overweight, like start taking steps to improve your health, right? And studies have also shown, like, it doesn't matter how overweight you are, once you lose like a very certain low percentage of that weight, even if you're not in quote unquote normal range, you're already improving your health so much, right? Like even if someone's severely overweight, there's something like a 10% loss in body weight, just the improvement in your health and your indicators of that illness just decreases so much. So,
well, and I guess that's kind of where I was going before with some of my statements around like COVID. And again, like you're right to say it's actually life, not just COVID. But if we're just using COVID, that's where we are, and everyone can have reference to it. It's been a year now. What kind of changes can you make in a year? But tons. You can make a lot of change in a year. But more importantly, and you kind of mentioned, if you have 10% weight loss can have severe improvements in your health. Well, I was reading a study the other day, and it was noting, and I can't remember actually. Clearly my retention is poor, but on the fact that like within 9 to 15 days, you can make health improvements by starting to move and choosing healthier foods, right? If that's the case, if you can make some, and even small as they might be, if you can make some small improvements in just a couple of weeks in your lipid profile or simply your hypertension is, why the frick are we not promoting this? Because if that's what we can do to help create that health reserve, right? Well, then we should be doing this and understanding that every one of those small changes makes a big change in the big picture, right?
In the grand scheme, like,
let's get moving. Let's promote this, right? So, I was going back to your comment of like, or a question I had about like symptoms. I was thinking about was like, like any like really when we get down to it, I guess it's like being overweight in general is going to be a health concern, not the body positivity individual. From a health perspective of mindset, cool, right? But if you're talking about straight actual like rubber hitting the road health, sorry, being overweight is not going to be healthy for anyone. But also I just think about all the things in life that like people do that maybe they don't recognize, like just carrying your groceries into the house. That should not be a challenging job. Your strength is
picking up your kids.
Yeah, picking up your kids, playing with your kids. These things shouldn't take you out of breath. Tying your shoes, right? Going up and down a set of staircase, right?
Getting up from the floor, getting up, bending down to get something. How many of us have thrown out?
I can still hear you, but there you are.
Sorry, my phone's gonna die.
That's right. Well, I know I had a little bit of my time here, which I know we're gonna overlap anyways, but so we can carry this on another day as well. But
sure,
I knew this would go down the rabbit hole really quickly, but it's good.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
that's
good.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, it was fun.
Okay, so then let's just maybe leave it there. But I want to just give you 1 second then at the end, because I know we're kind of having a hard stop here, but I don't want your phone to die out on us. Tell us about what you're doing from a business perspective and like your stuff, and give yourself a little shameless plug, if you will.
Oh, I'm not used to doing this because I've never had a business. I'm at Coach Nurse Erin on Instagram, and my intake form is on there. I'm also at NP Mrs. B on Instagram as well, but I'm trying to
Mrs. B?
NP Mrs. B, but I would go with at Coach Nurse Erin on Instagram.
Yeah, connect those two.
And
Make sure those two are the same so people know where they can find you in one spot in the same thing. Yeah.
Either way, yeah, for sure. But yeah, I'm just trying to help people with their eating, just focusing on our nutrition to improve health, basically. And there's different ways we can go about that. But if you have any questions or anything, I'm definitely here for you and open to chatting. But basically, my focus is focusing on, we'll figure out that amount of calories that you need to be in a slight deficit if that's what you're looking for. And sometimes that takes a little while, but we'll figure that out. And also promoting our maintenance and increasing of lean body mass, because that's such a metabolically healthy active tissue that helps us in our lives, right? So yeah, thanks.
And I'll add to that then. I think if someone was watching this and they are dealing with any kind of health issues, finding a nutrition coach who's also a NP, a practical nurse, registered
nurse
NP,
practitioner,
practitioner, a registered nurse, has the qualifications and the skill sets and the education that you do, going to be a little tough to find. There's not many of you guys out there, so you're a special individual, Erin. So I wish you all the best and all that stuff, and we'll talk more soon. But if you ever have any questions, make sure to reach out to Erin. You see her in the gym, you see her moving all the time because she's out there practicing what she preaches. So
I'm trying. And I'm not perfect either.
Well, no, but again, I always use the example in the prep courses at the gym is that, with anything, nutrition, exercise, whatever it might be, it's daunting, it's scary, but we have to take the perspective on it, just like, and I use the guitar analogy, right? So I'm really shitty at guitar, but I own a guitar. But when you go and you say, hey, I want to try a musical instrument, no one walks up to a guitar rack and goes, cool, I'm going to play this next week. No one does that because they understand the level of repetition, work, and time it takes into learning that. We as coaches have to stop trying to sell something in 2 weeks or 3 months and understand that it's like a guitar. No guitar teacher's like, yeah, cool, man, I'll have you on the stage in a month. Like, no one does this, right? Because it's not appropriate to sell it in that way. And nutrition and health and wellness and exercise is no different. Like you said, you want to get a pull-up. What took you over a year? Right? Some people take 5 years.
At least, I just working on it and scaling though. But that's what the coaches at Synergy do, right? Give me ideas on how I can scale this. So yeah.
So walk into it with the appropriate expectations. That's good.
Baby steps.
That's
Baby steps. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Sure. Okay, I'll let you go there, Erin. And once again, on the recording, I just love the little stethoscope. I'll have to bring my stethoscope next time.
It's always on. I always have it.
Yeah. I'll bring my Dr. Chad stethoscope. It'll be like blue and white for my kids' doctor's kit.
I love it. That should be our next health talk for sure.
That's right. Okay. Very good. All right. Thanks, dude. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Bye.
You too. Bye.